everyone, and welcome once again to one of our Hobby Memorial Library events. We are continuing our Surviving Adulthood series. And now, for those of you who want to, make music videos or YouTube videos or just anything, we're going to give you some information on what you need to look out for and what is important. We have with us today our copyright plagiarism guru librarian, Margaret Handro. She is our virtual services librarian, and she's going to go ahead and give you guys some really great tips. So, hi, Margaret. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and let me go and share my screen and we'll get going. Okay, first, standard disclaimer, I am not an attorney and this presentation does not provide legal advice. Intellectual property is the general label given to the protections provided by provided for copyright, trademarks, image and personality rights, and artificial intelligence. Theft of intellectual property is for copyrighted material called plagiarism. For trademarks, image, and personality rights, it's called infringement. Both types of theft can have costly effects. What this presentation is going to do is provide a brief overview of these terms and the potential consequences that may happen. Let's see. I get this. And there we go. So let's begin with some basic definitions. Copyright is the protection of intellectual property. Trademarks are used to protect a company's name or product. Both copyright and trademarks serve to protect intellectual creations. Plagiarism is the use of another person's ideas without their knowledge, consent, or proper attribution. Infringement is the copying or use of a logo or brand without the permission of the trademark holder. Image and personality rights are the protection of a person's image, voice, or other representation. And artificial intelligence, commonly known as AI, is a computer's thought process. People use inspiration and imagination to create. Computers, on the other hand, need instructions, keywords, and programming to manufacture objects, written works, or very realistic looking and sounding generated images of people. More on this particular aspect later on. So, what can be copyrighted? Well, simply put, copyright protects anything that is a product of a person's creative process. The items listed are only some of what is copyright protected. Also, creative works do not only have to be physical in nature. They can also be digital items, music scores, or doodles. So, copyright material can be used with permission granted, either through the use of attributions, permissions, and/or royalties. Attributions are statements that tell people the title of the original source that was used in the creation of another work. These statements are seen in movies or television programs or in literature, and usually have a phrase such as developed from, suggested by, or based on. Permissions are granted by the copyright holder and will specify how many times or how many copies can be made or how many times a particular work can be performed. Anything above that amount will need either an amended permission or the payment of royalties to the copyright holder. When in doubt, always contact the copyright holder. Now here's an important note. If you are an author and your work is going to be published, read through all of the contracts carefully or have a lawyer review them for you. The reason for this is that in the contract, there may be language that assigns all of the rights to the publishing company. The same could be true if your work is turned into a motion picture. The rights may get assigned to the production company, and then you do not have the rights to that as far as royalties go. And then finally, royalties are the fees that are paid to the copyright holder. And that's why it's very important to make sure that if you write something, that you keep the copyright rather than assigning it over to a publisher or a movie producer. Now, what are the consequences if you copy something without the user's permission? Well, that's called plagiarism. And plagiarism is a form of intellectual theft. It is the use of or taking credit for another person's creative work. The consequences for plagiarism can be costly. There are payments for lawyers, court costs, fines. You have a loss of employment or damaged reputations. Now, there are on the screen some famous cases of copyright infringement. For instance, 2016, Melania Trump gave a speech at the Republican National Convention. Well, a number of chunks of her speech could be shown in a side-by-side comparison as coming from Michelle Obama's 2008 speech at the Democratic National Convention. And this caused an awful lot of political controversy. Then you have Christiane Soroyo, who was fired and blacklisted for lifting passages from other people's works and using them in her own novels. Now, here's the funny part. Miss Soroya was an attorney, and she should have known better. Then you have Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams. The court found that they had copied Marvin Gaye's "Got to Give It Up" and used it in their song Blurred Lines. As you can see, they had to pay $5 million to the Marvin Gaye estate. Then you have George Harrison, who was sued for copying "He's So Fine," published by Bright Tunes, and he used it in his song "My Sweet Lord." It was a 10-year-long case, and when it was finally settled, Mr. Harrison had to pay out $580,000 in damages. And then you have Claudine Gay. Claudine Gay was the president of Harvard University. And rather, within the last year, there were some comments that she made. She was asked to testify before a House committee. And the results of the investigation of the House committee led to a further internal investigation at Harvard. And they found that she had several passages in her written works that were plagiarized. And what ended up happening was Claudine Gay was fired from her position at Harvard University as the president. And then in today's paper, this is very new, the estate of Sinead O'Connor sent a cease and desist letter to Donald Trump for his use of O'Connor's biggest hit, "Nothing Compares to You," at his campaign events. And so this is something that you really need to be very careful about when you are using other people's material, is you do need to have those permissions. Otherwise, you can pay some hefty fines. Now, trademarks, what are those? Well, trademarks are similar to copyright in that they protect a company's or product's brand or logo. Some of what you have here is a trademark helps to identify an organization, a government agency, an entity, a company, or a product. For instance, if you go and sneeze and you need to wipe your nose, you say, "Hi there, can I have a Kleenex?" Well, the word Kleenex is trademarked because it's a specific brand. So the next time you need something, ask for a facial tissue. Then you have trademarks that are used on letterheads for official correspondence or on web pages or in social media. And trademarks are protected by the Trademark Act of 1946, also known as the Lanham Act. And this protects against infringement, dilution, unfair competition, and false advertising. Now then, trademark infringement factors. Now, courts use a variety of factors or tests to determine whether or not an item has a trademark infringement. And there are two of them. There's one called the Polaroid factors that you're seeing listed here on this screen. There's also the LAP test, and it takes these same criteria and basically boils it in down to three main criteria that the courts look at. They look at to see, is the trademark valued? Excuse me. They look to see if the trademark is valid. Then they also look at the proof of ownership. And this is very key in that you need to be able to prove that your original trademark was registered. And so if somebody comes along and uses your trademark, you can say, wait a minute, my trademark was registered on this particular date. And without the registration, you may have a harder time fighting for your trademark's protection. And then it also looks at what the impact of the new trademark is on the original trademark. And some of the consequences of trademark infringement. You can have court costs, penalties, fines, assessed damages, and disgorgement of profits. Now, disgorgement of profits requires the infringing company to pay the profits that they made to the original trademark holder. So that's can be very costly. And so there are some court cases that we have. There's Louis Vuitton, the fashion house, that sued Louis Vuitton Dak, a South Korean fried chicken restaurant, for $14.5 million. The reason for this, the court found, was that the logos and the names of the companies were similar. And so people thinking that they were getting Louis Vuitton fashion found out this is fried chicken. What, there was a brand confusion there. And so Louis Vuitton Dak ended up paying the fashion house Louis Vuitton $14.5 million. Then you have something that's rather fun. Apple Corps is also known as Apple Records or Apple Incorporated. They sued Apple Computer. And part of this, you can tell right away, there is a name confusion with the first element being Apple. What ended up happening is that Apple Computer purchased the rights to Apple Corps, Apple Inc., Apple Records, and then sold those rights back to the recording company. And then lastly, you have something that's rather fun, DC Comics versus Marvel Comics. And at issue is the word superhero. And superhero apparently has been used in both comics, and one felt that the other had taken their brand term for some of their comic book characters. So you have So it can be very small as far as that goes. Then we have image and personality rights. Now, image rights are your rights to control or decide how your name, your picture, your voice are used. Personality rights, there are two main types. There's the right to publicity and the right to privacy. The right of publicity uh, allows for a person's likeness, voice, or other representation to be used for advertising. The right to privacy is your right not to be exploited. And there were some court cases on this, both of them occurring in 2014. You have Catherine Hagel versus Dwayne Reed Pharmacy, parent company is Walgreens. They were required to make a donation to a charity of Miss Hagel's choice. Essentially what happened is Miss Hagel went into Dwayne Reed's pharmacy, and an enterprising employee saw her there, recognized her, took a photograph of Miss Hagel, and then used it to promote the pharmacy with Miss Hagel's image. And the court found that that was a violation of Miss Hagel's image and personality rights. And then you have Michael Jordan versus two unnamed grocery store chains, one of which had an award given of to Mr. Jordan of $9 million, which he donated to charity. And again, it was something that maybe he shopped at a store and somebody saw him there and says, and the advertising was Michael Jordan shops here. And the courts found that that was not to be allowed. They did not have his permission for that. Then we come into artificial intelligence, and this is all very new. Artificial intelligence is a powerful tool with benefits and dangers. It can be very helpful for creating all types of work. It can make medical procedures easier to demonstrate or aid in creating archaeological objects, buildings, or enhance scientific and technological research and invention. It can also enhance learning in all fields of business, science, or technology. Now, there are some big negatives here too, in that it can create a computer-generated, realistic looking and sounding duplicate of a person. It can also be very deceptive and misleading. And there is some fear that AI will take away jobs or that it may cause socioeconomic issues. But most importantly is if you go back to the image and personality rights, it can be basically AI can take images of you if it has enough video, pictures, sound recordings, and create a very realistic version of yourself. And then that can be very disturbing to some people. Now, AI is being looked at globally by the courts to to determine what kind of protections of intellectual properties and national security are involved. And what some of the courts are finding is that AI material may not be copyrighted because it is computer generated rather than being created by a human. And then there are other courts that say the person that created the program may have copyright protections. So this is something that for about the last few months, the Copyright Clearance Center here in the United States has been having workshops and forums with artists, authors, sculptors, computer programmers to see what needs to be established for copyright protections using AI. So this is something that's very new, and it's something that we need to really keep an eye on for. Now, how do you avoid problems? Well, for copyright, be proactive. Research other works for similarities. Give proper credit or permissions, or get permissions from copyright holders. Trademarks, you want to search national and international trademark databases. In both cases, you want to do your due diligence. You want to check with either the copyright or trademark holder to see whether or not something that you have, if you find something, see whether or not your logo or what you want to write is going to be infringing on their rights as the holders. Ask for permission for use of material or trademarked items or logos. And then always document your searches and the responses. This goes a long way to protecting yourself in courts of law. And remember, royalty fees are always going to be cheaper than the court fees or penalties that you may end up paying if you don't do this bit of due diligence. And on the screen are the places that you can go in the United States. There's the U.S. Patent and Trademark Database, and you can type in a company name and you can see whether or not a trademark is active, if it's been in use. In some cases, you can buy trademarks. And then there is the Macaria International Trademark. It's a fee-based service, but it's international as far as the scope. And so a little fee is a lot better than a big penalty in court. So some takeaways. Copyright protects imaginative thought and generated works. Trademarks protect a company's or product's identity. Image and personality rights are everyone's right not to be exploited for somebody else's gain. AI, it's a powerful tool that can expand our creative possibilities and help solve problems. Um, now AI is the future, and it needs to be used responsibly. And the consequences of theft of intellectual property or of trademark infringement can be very expensive. So, any questions that you may have?
Melissa, are there any questions?
No, we don't have any right now.
Okay, I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Plus, well, and I also have, like, I noticed you were talking when you were talking about Sinead O'Connor. It
Mhm.
was her estate that
Yes,
was
yes,
it, because she is deceased. So
yes.
guys,
That's my mistake, is because I have it written in my notes that it's the estate of
no, but
Sinead
I mean, I'm
O'Connor.
just
Yeah,
pointing
yeah.
out that, people out there, they're like, oh, they're not with us. It's not protected anymore. So
The,
I'm
the,
glad you did use her as an example.
well, actually, there were two, because the one with Farnell Williams, it was the estate of Marvin Gaye that sued
Mm-hmm.
both
Right,
songwriters.
right.
So yes, you don't have to be alive to sue for copyright.
Right, right. Well, and also when you were talking about the images,
Hmm.
I know you guys have all have an app with a game on it. And there's a lot of those app ads
Hmm.
that are using like Oprah Winfrey's image or somebody else's image, and
Hmm.
they've not been given permission. So
Well,
don't be fooled by those ads. Oprah Winfrey does not endorse it.
yeah. I tell you, following up on that, very recently, and if you, I didn't include it in this presentation because of, I didn't want a political hot storm on my hands. But if you do a search in YouTube for Putin and AI, what you'll find are a bunch of videos that are a clip from his 2023 press conference. The very last question, I believe, was posed by a St. Petersburg University student. And the question was, how did Mr. Putin feel about AI, and did he have a body double? Now, why is this important? Because when Mr. Putin, it was a remote feed, and so when Mr. Putin looked at the computer screen, he saw himself and he heard his voice. All the body language, the hand gestures, everything was him, and it was an AI generated image. So it can be very dangerous. And what Mr. Putin's final response was that his likeness, his voice were for him and him only. So that is something that, yeah, it can be, it's a wonderful tool, but it needs to be used responsibly.
And with AI, I've read, and I know you have, we've all been looking at AI. Sometimes it hallucinates
Yeah,
citations, just
yeah,
makes it up, you
mhm,
know?
yeah,
So it is very hard to know what is real and what is not real.
yeah.
And there, like you said, there is a rabbit hole. I know myself, I was writing an article and I just called the author
Hmm.
and asked permission and said, could you email me? Yes, the permission. 10 minutes
Hmm.
later, I got a phone call from a journal and a lawyer because they were like, we have the rights to his article. This
Hmm.
lawyer has a right to, this thing or whatever. And if you
Hmm.
use it, you're going to have to pay us. And
Yeah,
so it may not always be so easy just to talk to the author.
that's why there's a comment in there about read the contracts. When you publish something, read the contract very carefully or have a lawyer do it, because what does happen, and there's a little video that the Center for Copyright Clearance puts out called like Copyright on Campus, I believe. And it talks about that, that says, well, I wrote it, I have the copyright. It's like, well, it was published. Who holds the copyright? Did you keep the copyright or did it get assigned to the publisher? And a lot of times authors will, when they sign that contract to get something published, there's a clause in there that says that all rights for copying and distribution are assigned to the publisher. The same thing happens with movies too, that it's very easy for an author or a creative person to lose their royalty fees because they signed them away to somebody else with a
Do you want to
contract.
stop sharing the screen?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, and also, I know like there's a lot of free download sites, free
Hmm.
downloads for music, free downloads for
Yeah.
gifs, free
Hmm.
downloads for images or whatever. Um, if they are being used, like in a YouTube video and you're
Hmm.
putting stuff together,
Yeah.
it, do we put all that information in the description?
I would think that you
Yes.
would, just to be on the safe side. It's not worth, having something come and, excuse me, hit you, a few years down the road that says, hi there, this was ours. It may have been free, but I would still say cite it, someone.
Yeah, and those things usually have license information.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to read the license and
yeah,
put that in the description as well.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Especially,
okay.
especially if you're intending to make a profit with it.
Yeah, well, and a lot of those free downloads, you've got to read those license.
Hmm.
It says you
Yeah,
can't make a profit.
yeah. And some
You
people
cannot
are,
make a profit, do AdSense or anything else for this.
yeah,
So, yeah, just guys be very wary, like Margaret said. So awesome. A lot of great information, Margaret.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's check with Alyssa again. Any other questions, Alyssa?
No, no questions.
Okay. All right. Well, you know where Margaret is. She is at the library and she has the copyright, plagiarism, all that wonderful information. If you have any questions or you're not sure about something, go ahead and, contact Margaret. We'll see if she wants to put her email in the comments, or you can just come on into the library, ask for Margaret, and she will go ahead and give you a ton of information. She again, reads everything from cover to cover.
No, I don't.
So, yeah, you do.
No,
You do read the citation books from cover to cover.
no, those, yes, all right. I will read those cover to cover and always refer to them as my Bibles.
There you go. See, there you go. So we do have an expert, or she says not an expert, but she is an expert. She's really, she knows her stuff here at the library. So, so thank you, Margaret, so much. And before we go, let me remind you guys of some of our events that we have coming up. Tomorrow we have 2 more librarians. This is Librarian Week. We have Brandy Faulkner and Ash Garcia, and they are going to be talking about clothes maintenance. Ash is going to teach us how to tie a tie. So for those of you out there who try to tie your tie and you got to go find somebody to know how to do it, we're going to have a demonstration. Then Brandy is going to talk to us about different sewing techniques. That will be again at noon. And we will show it live stream at noon at Facebook here. And you can always watch all our videos on our YouTube page as well. Just Google Hobby Memorial Library YouTube and you can find that. So a few more things we have coming up. We have on March 18th, this is right after our spring break, we have houseplant care. Professor Keaton Eric talks to us in the greenhouse about how to not kill your houseplants, guys. You know, everybody kills their houseplants. They're beautiful. They come back and, you give them like 3 weeks and you have a dead plant. Well, he tells you why. So he tells you how to fix it. Then we have another night sky tour on March the 20th with Warren. He is retiring. So we have 2 more chances of him this March 20th, and then we're going to have one in April that he's going to do. And then after that, we'll just have, you can watch the old videos of him. He is also going to be doing an eclipse safety event for us before the eclipse. So make sure to watch that as well. And then I have one more. Oh, and on March 25th, we have Professors Falkenstein and Bobet who are going to be doing banking. So guys, if you always feel like you're, overdrawing, definitely watch this. And getting a job on March 27th. And that's just a few of what we've got going on. We still have a lot going on. If there are CTC students out there, the deadline for byways is March 15th. Please go to our website, go a little bit down the page, hit byways and find out all about it. It is where all the CTC creative writers, artists, photographers, metal workers, you name it, enter. It looks great on your resume, and we want you guys to get involved. So make sure you get it by the deadline. All right. Well, Margaret, thank you again. Thank you, Alyssa, for streaming. And guys, go enjoy this beautiful weather. I don't know if we're going to have any more freezes, but yeah, go outside. Enjoy it. Y'all have a great day. And Alyssa, if you will take us out, please.